All right. Good morning, all of you beautiful people coming in from all over the world. We are so excited to be with you this morning. And I think this is the first event that I've been a part of since I got married. So I'm super happy to be back with you guys. And I'm joined by my good friend and colleague and master painter, Dianna Shyne.
Thank you. It is so good to be here. Sorry about the little crack in my voice. I got a cold about a month ago, and it just sort of is camping in my vocal cords. So besides the little cracky voice, I'm fine. And
Yeah.
I'm really excited to talk to you about snow and painting snow. I got a bunch of snow paintings behind me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really thrilled about this topic. I was raised in the Cascade Mountains in Washington State, and I would cut out little snowflakes and hang them over my bed and pray for snow. And then pretty soon the snow was up to the eaves and we were sledding off the roof.
Oh my goodness.
So, and I was wondering if I maybe prayed too hard or something.
The answer
Cut
in
out too
abundance.
many snowflakes. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But that first snow was magical. So we could just get started with talking about how to paint it, how to find it and represent it in our paintings, and make it not a fight, but make it a joyful experience. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Absolutely.
switch over
Okay. I'm just going to
to
make a
my.
couple announcements real quick,
Oh
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
I'll
Okay,
throw it
you
back over
do
to
that.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, guys, yeah, welcome to this month. Like I said, we're doing snow this month. So, super excited about that. And just a couple things I wanted to mention. One is that week 2, Jennifer Bowman will be doing a demo on water, actually, because she made a good point that a lot of you are in places where it's not snowing or you don't get snow this time of year. So we wanted to have something there for you guys. So that'll be happening week 2. And also, if you haven't gotten your hands on the miniature painting challenge, be sure to do that. All the info is up on the website. We have a wonderful new challenge from Dianna Shyne. She's doing portraits. So I know portraits has been something that we've been asked about a lot. So we have that for you. Amy Erickson, Jed's new challenge. So be sure to check that out. But other than that, I will toss it back over to you, Dianna.
Okay, great.
All
Well,
right.
I'm just gonna turn up my light a little bit here. Sorry, it's just gonna take a second, and uh, we're gonna just get started with some fresh snow. Like I said, I used to sit in my room and sing "Let It Snow." And there's something about that first snowfall. For those of you who don't experience snow, especially for a kid, there's something really magical about that moment when it happens, when everything changes from November brown and grays and beiges to something magical. And then you toss on your coat and your snow boots and you walk through the fluff. You're the first footsteps through this beautiful blanket of stuff, and it squeaks just so, and it creaks and it squishes under your feet. And maybe a few bunnies and squirrels were there before you, but usually it's like you're the first one out there. And I really just love that moment where everything feels new. This is the lake by where I grew up, and the transformation that first snow gives sort of is like a highlight marker on everything that makes everything stand out in a different way. These feel like my mountains, but even the trees take on a whole different woolly, sheepy look that I absolutely love. And some sun coming up and rising on a fresh snow is one of the prettiest things. So let's talk about some of the attributes of fresh snow. And to me, one of the attributes is its color, of course, and just the fluffy puffiness of it all, the way it softens all the edges of the world. And like I said, makes a highlight marker on everything that seemed sort of mundane and gray and ordinary a day ago. And I think one of the big attributes of snow is the difference between hard and soft edges when you're looking at it. And so I thought we'd take a few moments in this little tutorial to talk about edges. And I talked about them in painting clouds as well. And there's a lot of similarities, but something happens in snow. Whoop. And that is that edges create the feel of soft snow, melting snow, snow with marks in it, snow with shadows on it. So, first of all, let's take a look at what I mean by a soft edge. That's an edge in a painting between something dark and something light, something warm colored and something cool colored, or between two different pieces. And here it's painted softly, where it's not a hard mark, but it's a gentle transition between the two different values or two different colors or two different shapes. When we're talking about a lost edge, I pulled up the trees and the two little green buildings because the edges of these buildings just sort of smush into each other and they're lost. The edge between the shadow on that little road just gets lost into the shadow of the trees. That's what I mean when I say a lost edge. The edges kind of vanish into each other. When I say hard edge, I mean that the paintbrush stroke is, I have a really hard time making hard edges. All my paintbrush strokes are a little bumpy or soft or broken. But here's an example of a fairly hard edge where there's a discrete line between two different colors and two different shapes. And then we have another type of edge called a broken edge. And that's where the edge, like of this tree branch over here, I don't know if you can see my cursor, there it is broken up. It isn't a straight line, it's just interrupted by another color. It breaks up the flow and makes it a lot easier for your eyes to flow through that part of the painting. Here's another example of a broken edge where the whole piece is just sort of broken up and interrupted. And a lot of times you can make that kind of broken edge in your painting with just dry brush. Take a brush once the paint is dry and just swooshing a brush of another color right over it and break it up. We'll look at this again. It was with Carl Bretsky's painting. And we'll look at some soft, hard. I didn't put any broken edges in here. He has some lovely soft edges in here. Transitions between different places in the snow, transitions between the puddle and the ground. There's a beautiful lost edge in this lamppost. And that lost edge right there allows your eye to flow through that part of the page. A hard edge, your eye will go right up and down. Your eye will follow along the edge of a hard edge like an ant on the edge of a countertop. You get those little tiny ants we do here in Portland, and they just go, but your eye flows across a hard edge just like that. But it can flow in the composition of your painting right through a lost edge. Here's another lost edge, the edge between the trash can and the legs of the people. There really isn't an edge. It's implied because you can your eye follows down the sides of their coats, but really those edges of their legs and the trash can are lost. And finally, here's a hard edge. You can see when you're viewing this painting how your eye really travels hard along that hard edge, the hard edge of the person, and it circulates you around in a beautiful circular pattern through this painting. Here's some broken edges along the side of this reflection. There's more on this reflection of the lamppost here, where the little riffles in the puddle have broken the edge of the side of that lamppost. These are important when we talk about snow because they're going to create some different aspects, and we're going to look at those right now. Randy Hayashi has painted this painting, and mostly his clouds are soft edged, but pretty much everything else has a nice hard edge on it. And what that hard edge does in his painting is make the snow feel crisp. That's sort of the aspect of things that are crisp, is they have a nice crisp edge. And one of the aspects of snow is that it can be very crisp and can feel crisp. And that's the way his painting makes me feel when I look at it. You can get that crispy feel of the air against the trees, of the snow as it's working down towards the rocks. Here's another painter, a Canadian painter, Stephanie Gauvin. I hope I said her last name correctly. Sorry, Stephanie. And she paints with a lot of hard edges, even in things like the edge of shadows that are very often soft and blurry. She's got a beautiful, crisp, hard edge. Even her clouds have crisp edges. And it really accentuates the crispness of the day. She has beautiful color, beautiful light, reflected light, but it's just in the way the paint is laid down that gives you that feel, that really wonderful feel of cold crispness. Even when the snow is reflecting yellow light, you still get the feel of crisp. Here in Levitan's painting, I see some soft and broken and lost edges in the trees. And what that does to my eye is it makes it feel like the trees are in motion, like they're moving, in comparison to the harder, crisper edges in the snow, where it looks like the snow has broken off and melted. This isn't new snow. You can tell by the crisp edges, it's melted old snow. And by portraying those brush marks, the difference between the soft and lost edges and the crisp hard edges gives you that feeling of crisp snow and wind blowing. You can have different attributes in your painting. They don't all have to be painted with the same crispness or the same hard or soft edges. You can choose where to put your brushwork. Don't worry if this is confusing. I'm going to demonstrate 2 different ways to do a painting on a little 6-inch by 6-inch panel. And if this is too easy for you, well, just follow along and let it be a reminder. This painting, the magpie, really, really caught my imagination when I saw it. I've used this painting in a lot of my classes. I just love it. In person, I got in trouble with the guard because I got my face really too close to the painting and noticed the underpainting in this painting was bright red. And you can't even see it in this blow up, but those teeny tiny little dots of the underpainting that peeked through made it look like the snow was sparkling. But here, Monet has created some really interesting edges in his trees. They are lost, they're soft, they're broken. The feel of those branches weighted down with a fresh new batch of snow is all right there in the brushwork, in the lost, soft, and broken edges. And over here, in this fence that the magpie is sitting on, we can see some hard edges, but the snow has broken. We can take a look. These edges of the rungs of the ladder are broken, and it gives it a feel. There's a feel to that your eye just doesn't zip across and make it feel like a barrier. It feels more natural and more beautiful, and like snow has weighted down this old gate as well. Here I'm going to do a little demo. I've done a demo of this image before, and I couldn't find it on Acrylic University website. So I thought, well, I'll do another demo of this. And I pre-recorded it. So it's going to go a little fast. If you'd like to paint along with it, you might want to wait till this comes out as a recording and then slow it down and stop it. But first, I want to show you how I got the palette with 3 colors. I'm just going to I'm noticing there's a lot of lavenders and blue violets in the shadows. So first thing I do is I set up my palette with red, yellow, and blue in the corners. I'm going to mix the red and blue equally and create a lavender. And then I'm putting the blue violet right next to the blue. I'm getting at the value that I see it mostly in the photo. And then I do see a few little pops of red violet back there, not many, but I figured I might as well just create some red violet as well. And now I put my orange right between the red and the yellow, and I mix up a big glob of orange because the light shining on these trees is very warm. There's an orange cast to it, and also in the snow. So I'm mixing up some orange to be an additive to a lot of other colors. And I want to create the color of the snow. First, I'm trying yellow, and no. Oh, no. That looks like a bear visited the snow. We don't want yellow snow. Not good. Not in this case. So now I'm going to try orange. And I think that warm sunlight on the snow, that's a better color. I may add more yellow into it, but I definitely don't want it to look like it was a bear visited. And then there are a lot of neutral tones, warm neutrals in the tree trunks themselves. So I'm mixing purple and orange together and getting a really nice soft brown. And that is sort of a beautiful way to make a warm neutral tone. And to lighten it, I'm adding just a little bit more orange. And to lighten it again, like the trunks of those trees, I'm adding a little bit more yellow and yellow orange. And it's okay to exaggerate in your painting. As long as you get the difference between warm and cool, dark and light, you can have all kinds of exaggerations. But this is how I'm going to make those darks in the way back, which is a dark purple, and then just add a touch of that orangey brown color into it so it isn't just flat purple. So let's take a look. The first drawing I'm going to do is exaggerating, or the first painting, excuse me, is exaggerating the soft and lost edges in this. And so I'm just taking my colors and I'm going to get started here. Like I said, I have speeded this up a little bit. So if you're trying to paint along, just get someone to turn up the dial on you too. Otherwise, just come back to this and after we're done and slow it down, stop it, so you can do it. I didn't want to take up our whole time with these little paintings. I wanted you to show how I proceed. And if you were along on my tree painting workshop, there was a way to create some perspective in the tree trunks, which was to find, let's see if I can do it with to find these rings on the tree trunks when they're, I use the term smiley face, when they're a smiley face, the tree is coming towards you. So we have these tree trunks bending towards us. The rings on the trees are dipping down like that. So I'm going to try to follow some of those movements with my brushwork. And I did not put an underwash down. And I sort of regretted that afterwards, wishing I had done the red like Monet did in the Magpie. But I think we're going to get it anyway. And I'm using my finger to blur out the edges so that the tree trunks are not just a straight up and down edge. I want to really get the feeling, the overall feeling in this first little 6-inch demo of real softness and the fluffiness, and even the feeling of the snow when you first run out into it and you're like, just, I don't know. When I was a kid, I would just, the first thing I'd do was with my little snow boots on, was just run as fast as I could through the snow and let it go, let it fly. So I'm putting in the underlayer some of the warmer colors that I see. I'm going to try to use my mouse again. Here we go. There's some transition areas right between the shadow and light where it seems like the snow got a little warmer in color. We'll look at that more clearly in a minute. Um, but I put those warmer colors down first. And I think what I'm going to do is switch to my color shaper, which is like a big rubber spatula. And I'm putting the colors down really thick with this color shaper. Good thing I mixed them up in advance. How could I ever paint this quickly if not? And again, I'm making those straight edges of the trees. I'm trying to go sideways on them to create a little bit of that perspective and to make sure that I break up some of those lines. Keeping the background soft means going wet into wet for me. If you miss your window of opportunity and the paint dries, you can always just use a finger or a paintbrush to smudge an area, a wet area over a dry area. You don't have to worry. Actually, the acrylics, you don't have to worry at all. You just go back and cover anything you don't like. You just keep building up layers. But as I work into this painting, I'm seeing where I could lose an edge, where I could smush out some color, um, keeping an eye, and this is the tricky part, keeping an eye on my values so that I get a good reading of shadow and light on this painting. You'll notice there's another little 6 by 6 inch board there. And I will, as soon as this one is done, which is just almost now, I'm just making a couple more of those little warm interim colors. I will do a demo of a hard-edged painting. As I said before, softer edges are a lot easier for me. I've practiced them a lot more than hard edges are, unless I'm worried. As soon as I start worrying about a painting, out come the hard edges. But what I really wanted for this little demo was to see if I could get that fleetingness, the feeling of dashing and running through the snow, getting my snow boots all filled up. And there we have it. There's my little demo. Does it feel like that way to you? Okay, let's take a look at painting it with harder edges. Now, like I said, this is a little more difficult for me, but I did draw in the lines with a paintbrush, and I am going to try to, you know, it's not like painting inside the lines, even when you have hard edges. That's too much like a coloring book. We still want to create perspective. We want to create drama. We want to create the difference between shadow and light. We want to create form. But this time I just want to emphasize the hard, crispy edges of the elements in this little image. Isn't that dark color, the purple with just a little bit of orange in it? Isn't that just a beautiful color? I love it. That's something to practice, is finding those really gorgeous, delicious darks that aren't black. And from doing 2 paintings, I already have a lot of these colors pre-made. So I can, I don't have to fight so hard to find those colors. And the way to keep them, if you haven't been using a Masterson Stay Wet palette, I think there's lots of tutorials on Acrylic University for getting that palette fixed up. And so in this image, I'm going to try to stay a little truer to the edges of the trees, to the edges of the snowbanks, to the edges of the negative shapes in the background. It's funny how our perspectives, for those of you who live in warm climates, you might not appreciate this so much, but my perspective changed so much from the time I was a little kid till now. I have a car that it's great for the city driving, but not so great in the snow. I was visiting my family over a mountain pass, and the minute the weather report said there might be snow on the pass, I was packing my bags and heading out because I did not want to drive in it. I was like, nope, nope. I learned to drive in the snow, pirouetted my old 59 Ford around stop signs and out into traffic on icy roads. It was crazy. But I don't really care to do that anymore. So here you can see how I'm still, even when I'm paying more attention to edges, still really paying attention to shadow and light, because that creates form, that creates 3 dimensions. And I'm still putting quite a bit of lovely, juicy, thick paint on my brush, because that creates that beautiful painterly feeling, even if we're deciding to do hard edges, you're deciding to do a different style of painting, you can still have beautiful painterly moments within it. I'm reminded of that Randy Hayashi painting. It's so, the edges of things are so crisp, but it's still so beautifully painterly. Excuse me. I got to take a drink of my hot lemon tea here, or you won't get my voice for the rest of the day. What I love in this is just a little teeny tiny cutout of a much larger photograph, but I love this little moment with these 3 trees as they bend away from each other and as the snow piles up between them. There we go. Oops. We got a little more line work here. I think my computer just took a moment off for a second. But I really love how the snow blew and piled up on the side of this tree. And what I think is fun is that, it would be fun to do a third painting, combining the 2 things, the soft edges of the snow and the snow on the bark of the tree, and then the hard edges of the tree trunks and the branches and the trees in the background. Might be really fun to do a third little sketch, because practicing makes us stronger as long as we're practicing the right things, practicing with intention. And so here, my intention of this practice was, I'm going to teach myself how to do some harder edges, because I don't practice that enough. And another intention would be to practice with that color shaper so that I can learn how to make really crazy brush marks and still create form and light and shade and imagery, even if my brushwork is way out there. And I feel like doing these little studies is part of what helps us develop our own unique style of painting, how the kind of painting we want to do when we grow up. I'm still searching for my absolute style. Maybe it just morphs along with me. Nothing wrong with putting a little outline, is there? I think that makes it look really nice and crisp and makes a really distinct difference between the hard edges of the trees and the soft edges of the snow. A little shadow, a little light. I just couldn't leave it. I couldn't do it. Uh-oh. Made it hard, but I had to soften it up again. So here we are, a painting with soft edges and the same painting with hard edges. And you can feel the difference in the two pieces. One has that, the soft edge piece has the soft fluffiness of the snow and almost like you're running through the woods at top speed or the snow is still falling. And the other one has the crisp coldness of the snow. The edges themselves create a different dynamic in how the painting looks. So I'm going to talk to you for a minute about the color of snow. Watch the little white ball as it interacts with this snow at nighttime. And you'll notice what I would like you to do is pay attention to the color of the snow as the little white ball passes over it. And you'll see that the color of the snow on the ground, I know there's some bricks showing through, but the color of the snow on the ground actually has more to do with the color of the light shining on it. You can see the snow in those doorways looks white because white light is shining on it. The snow further out onto the ground has other colors because other colors are shining on it. And a lot of the color of snow depends upon the color of light and whether the snow is in shadow or light. We always think of snow, I always think of snow as being white because we normally encounter snow in the middle of the day. At the edges of the day or in deep shadow, that might be an entirely different color. When we look at the color of the snow on the right, it is a dark mid-value because it's in a dark shadow, and it is dark blue it is a blue to blue violet. It's not white. There's not one drop of white snow anywhere. And in fact, snow is only white when white light is shining on it. Here's a beautiful Russian Impressionist painting of snow at night by Korovin. And you can see it's blue, and where the yellow lights are hitting, it's yellow. And I absolutely adore this piece. It's all little dashes and darts and dots and lines, and yet it beautifully conveys that feeling of walking down a city street in the snow. I've shown this picture a lot, and I apologize for that. I need to get out more. If you haven't seen it before, well, good. It's new for you. I was staying at my daughter's house in Maine and got up at sunrise one morning, and I took a picture of the little woodshed out back. And then later that day, right at noon, I took another picture. And I'm going to put those side by side. When we look at the snow on the woodshed at noon, it's midday light, it's white light. And when we look at the one to the right, that's morning light. Afternoon light does the same thing, although the shadows would be reversed. But this is morning light, which is very warm light. If you want to know more about that kind of light, you can look at my course, The Color of Light. I have a whole big long course that goes through how you determine what color the light is. But morning and afternoon are called the golden hours for a reason. So let's take a look at this white ball, and you can see that there's a lot of white snow on the midday picture. And when we move that white ball down to our morning picture, there is no white snow at all. It's all orange to orangey, violety, browny, pink. That's pigment Latin for, I don't know what to name that color, but it isn't white. And then the shadows. We so often think of shadows and snow as being gray because we see them in midday. And under white light, the shadows on the snow are quite gray. But in the morning light, when we're seeing them against that beautiful, warm light, they're purpley, blue, violet, not gray at all. So when we compare the light and shadows, it totally depends on the time of day. What color you're going to choose to paint your snow depends on the time of day you're looking at it and the type of light. Here in Ramona Youngquist's painting, we know this has got to be an edge of the day. I've pulled out a shadow, and I've pulled out a piece of the light, and you can see that her sunlight is orange and her shadows are blue. They're the opposite on the color wheel, and it makes such an effective snow painting without there being a scrap of white in the snow at all. This is a picture I took near my old home on Camino Island after a first snow, and some people had slippy slid down their driveway. their car was careening down their driveway hill and left these tracks, and I thought how lovely it was. I did a painting of it. I should show you later. But I wanted to put that white ball over top of the snow because my mind was telling me that was white snow. And when I put the ball over it in the sunlight, it's not white at all. There's color in it everywhere. This piece on the left is just a blow up of this area right here. Try to get my mouse to get big. Sorry if that makes you dizzy. But here's a little sunshine. The sunlight is coming from over in this direction, going at an angle, hitting the sides of these tread marks. And the other thing that's happening with the snow is that it's going through a lot of different shapes. It's creating a lot of dimensions. So I drew a red line to sort of follow along the shape as the tire crunched into the snow, or the people were slipping and sliding in their boots through it to try to get their car out of the snowbank, whatever. But you can see some of the snow angles away from the light, and some of it angles towards the light. So here in the upper right of this picture, we can see, I just took a dropper out of the color of that snow. Where it angles away from the light, it's cooler and a little darker and grayer. Here, where it angles completely away from the light and turns to shadow, it's blue. And up here, where the light is more angled towards the light, it has a warmer, peachier color. And up top here, if you can see my little circle, where the snow angles is facing the light, is completely facing towards the light. Still not white, but a more yellow color. Let's put those colors side by side and look at them. These are the colors of the snow in this photograph. It makes a difference how you mix those colors up. Even in midday on this day, you can tell it's midday by the shadows. They're coming pretty straight down. Even in midday, there's still warmth to this angled lighting. And once again, we're looking at the magpie for a different reason. His branches all covered in snow that are in light shadow. The snow up in the branches is very luminous. Like a cloud, it gets filled with light. But still, because it's in shadow, it's a violet color. And here in the deep shadow, it's blue-violet. And over here in the light, oh, who knows what color that is. It sort of flickers between a greenish color as it turns away from the light to a peach color as it turns towards the light. It's a very variegated, but you can tell it moves from warm to cool, and even up in the shadows inside the snow, all over those branches, it's a cool color with soft, lost edges. Here's another Russian Impressionist painting by Zakharov. And I really thought this was an interesting piece because the snow is so purple. It's so very purple. And the light, there's just a little bit of light on the top of that one building, and it's very warm, a yellowish color. The snow here on the ground of his painting is just angled away. It's tilting away from the light, but it isn't in shadow because the shadow is this dark blue to blue violet. So what we're seeing is that as the shape of the snow angles away from the sun, it changes color. In my photograph, it kind of turned a gray, but Zakharov interpreted that as a beautiful, lush violet. So I want you to think about ways that you could interpret the color of snow, new ways of thinking about how this beautiful, white, fluffy, lush stuff reflects the light and creates shadow in color. Now, here's my painting. I have to confess, I pre-recorded this painting. It's in real time, but I'm confessing that because I did this earlier in the year, and when my voice cracked up, as it's doing, I sent this demo to Peter, so that in case my voice was not working anymore, we would have something to show you. It's about 35 minutes long. And after I do the demo, I will be ready for a lot of questions and answers and show and tell. But I want you to look at that panel. It's crazy. What I did to make that panel. Oh, there we go. Oh, sorry. What I did to make that panel was I scraped off an old palette and scraped it all over the panel. And you can do the same thing, or you can do the Monet thing and just put a red wash down. I'm using quinacridone burnt orange, which is hard to find. You can mix your primary magenta with yellow oxide to get a similar color. You don't have to use yellow oxide if you want to. You can use your primary yellow or your cadmium yellow. You'll just mix a little bit differently than I do. It will all turn out great because the colors will all create harmony. I chose the burnt orange and the yellow oxide to create those soft orangey browns. So you can choose whatever you want. If you don't have any quinacridone burnt orange, you can use your primary color, or you can use an iron oxide or a burnt sienna if you want. But in any case, I'm going to pause this, move over, and I'm going to let Peter run the demo. Thanks, Peter. The image. So I'm going to take a brush, get some dark color. I'm going to be using mostly quinacridone burnt orange, yellow oxide, ultramarine blue, and or phthalo blue-green shade white. There's a little red and a little yellow, primary red and yellow from a different palette, and I reserve the right to maybe use those. I don't know. So I'm just mixing up a little bit of a darker color. What I want to do is make sure I don't have this divided up into equal pieces. And I would like to create a little bit of a lead in with some of these yellow bushes. So I'm just going to give myself some room for that. Keep the house small, and I'm only going to block in where it goes. I'm not going to sketch the whole thing, just to get those angles. Because I have so much to do up here. Oh, and the paint is still pretty wet from where I scraped my old palette. I really like the sky. I like the little pop of yellow with the house and this hidden building back here behind the trees. So the big ideas here are these trees, and I'm going to attach that tree to the top of the page for fun and to make it a more interesting composition. It's going to be hard to see until I get started covering this up. While this is setting up my funky little sketches, I'm going to do some color mixing. This is normally how I do. If I lay in a wash, I'll do the same thing. Wait till the wash dries and utilize that time to mix up a few simple colors. The color of the snow is a warm white, so I'm going to mix a little bit of my yellow oxide into some white, create a warm white. Yeah, a warm white. I may add just a touch of red to that. We'll see how that goes. Now, some of that white is going to be pure white. I like that color. The shadow color in the snow is cool, so I'm using ultramarine to depict that. We'll see how that goes. I like this yellow oxide and the quinacridone burnt orange mixed together for the bushes, and I'll mix it a little darker with a touch of ultramarine for the trees and the branches. There's some blackish dark green, which I will put right here. I'm using my yellow oxide and my ultramarine blue and a touch of this red business, a touch of my phthalo, to get a really dark green for those evergreen trees. Just putting the color down to see how I like it. The last color that I really need to make here, there's not a lot of color here, but it's that gorgeous sky color against all of this. So I'm using the phthalo blue green shade, and I'm just mixing up some really bright blue. I'm using the phthalo blue green shade and a touch of ultramarine. Oh, there was some orange in that, but that's all right. That can be for the, I can make some gray for that fog that's up there too. Ooh, I like that color. Once I get my colors decided on, and I have enough of them, which I think I need a little more of this color of orange, and I'm going to need to put out some more white. I was really being conservative on that white. Let me dig down, put out a little more white. There we go, pure white. Now, I'm just going to get a smallish, not too small, but a square. Here's a flat. It's a number, oh dear, 8. It's a number 8 flat. And I'm going to just start laying on my color. Now, I wanted a lead in of some bushes, so I'll give myself some room for that. And I'm just going to put some flat strokes of color down to start, and we'll see where I go from there. Here's the shadow. Needs to be a little darker. Now it's tempting to think about making bushes, making sticks. But what I want to do is stay out of that idea for a while and just make color, value, shape decisions for a bit. If I can stay in that idea of making color, value, shape decisions, I'll get to my imagery faster. I'm going to use a little bit of this cadmium yellow to boost up the yellow in the house. And yellows are pretty transparent, so I need to add a touch of white to them to make them opaque, to cover this crazy under. Now I don't want to cover up everything underneath. And the reason I don't is because I really want to have some of this wacky color showing through. That's why I put it there. I would really just love to have some pops of fun, interesting color coming through everywhere. So that was my idea for this, is just to have some other painterly, interesting thing going on under the surface. So it gave me all sorts of texture, and it gave me all sorts of color to play with under the surface. That was a piece of the paper towel. I don't want to make a collage necessarily. Maybe I do. I don't know. I don't think so. I'm going to just pop in the biggest colors I see in these big strokes. And I'm going to have some fun with this color. I love this. I think this is gorgeous. And I really like the color coming up through. Here's that color that I kind of got a little dirty. So I'm just adding a little more of this quinacridone burnt orange and white to make that fog color. And in the photograph, the fog just looks like it sits on top of the tree. I don't want that. That looks a little funny to me. It looks like the tree is holding up the fog. I think what I want to do is make sure that it goes behind. Now I'm just trying to find my way through the image bit by bit, brush mark by brush mark. And with this tree up here, I'm going to do both positive and negative shapes. I'll put in I'm putting in the background color, then I'll put in the positive shapes then I will cut back around with some negative shapes, if that makes sense. Here I'm going to pop in this other little rectangle of bright yellow. I want it nice, thick, nice and juicy. Painterly. And then there's a lot of dark back in this area. So I think I'll create a big dark mass of phthalo blue and quinacridone burnt orange. Just sort of connect up this whole area back here with this dark. Now I might get a different tool out to make these branches because I really love how they twist and turn. But I'll get started doing it this way. Now I'm going to reach for this red just for a moment to create a little bit of a more violet color. I'm seeing just a touch of a violet color back here. Not strong, but I don't want it to be too wussy either. Let's see. There we go. Purple is created with red and blue. Just put some red and blue together of whatever red and blue I have. And I want to cut through by just scratching, making some textures back here. I think that's going to be a little bit fun, because if I still have some wet paint, I can cut through some textures. And I am still looking at the big shapes, trying to find the big shapes. Then I will come back again with a few smaller shapes and negative shapes and painting in behind. There's still an awful lot of that mess in there, but I can see it starting to come together. And I'm just not going to worry about it being messy until the end of the painting. Then I'll worry. If it's still messy, terrible looking at the end of the painting, that's when I'll worry about it. But for the meantime, I'm just going to put in the shapes as I see them. When I squint, cut myself a little bit of slack for my shaky hands, because that's just life. I love this old house. I don't know if anyone lives there or not. It doesn't seem like they do. But I think it's just wonderful old cabin. I think it used to be a cabin in the woods, but now it's kind of sitting by the highway. I don't want that to be too black. I don't want it to look like a ghost house, just an old house. All right, for now and the rest of the painting, it's a matter of finding the smaller and smaller and smaller shapes. Figuring out how I'm going to get these shapes to happen. I have about half my time is gone. And so I'm really going to just work hard to find the rest of these shapes in dark, light, and medium values in warm and cool temperatures, and to find some textures that are interesting with these shapes. Trying to leave a little bit of my old color behind. There's a glob there I don't like. I'll take that out. Now, to cover up wet paint, you need to have thicker paint than what's underneath. So if you have a glob of thick paint that you're just anxious to cover, just put thicker paint over top of it. Now, I don't know if that works or not. I'm just going to leave it there until I decide whether or not it works. See, I'm getting lots of little detail in here with my bigger brush, and I may yet move to a smaller brush. We'll see. What I'm trying to do here is get a integrate the color of the sky with the color of the ends of the branches in order to make them fold out into the sky. Now, some of them don't do that, like the tree over here. There's just snow sitting in a big heap on top of that bush. And if I don't like it, I can always cover it up, leave it out, change it. But right now, I kind of like the shape. But it might be too far off on the edge of the page, so I'm just going to move it in a little bit. If I find that I've wrecked it, I can always go back and fix it, or I can just take it out, which I might do. There we go. Out. Better. It makes it a better painting with it out, I think. Now, I'm going to get some bright, bright, bright blue. I keep having to mix more. This is a problem. It slows me down. I should have had this enough mixed for the whole painting. And one of the things I'm seeing here is that the branches are much darker than the sky. So I really want to get those branches in darker than the sky. And when I come back to those sky holes, let's get this gray in. When I come back to those sky holes, I'll come in with a smaller brush. I like this bank of fog. Sort of sandwiching the whole thing together. But I don't want it to come across in just flat strips. It's sort of important to know what you want in your painting, to just splat away without having any feeling for what it is you want to say or do in a painting makes it really hard to get anywhere. Some people manage that quite well. They just let the painting unfold, while others find that very hard. Having an idea of what you want your painting to look like actually helps a lot of people limit what they do, limit the amount of detail, or enhance the amount of detail, depending on where you're going with your painting. For me, one of my goals is to not get too detailed. So I stayed with that number 8 brush for a long time. This is a number 6 brush. This is a 9x12 panel, not huge. If I had a bigger panel, I probably would not go to this small of a brush, a number 6. I would probably stay with my bigger brushes throughout if I were dealing with a bigger painting surface. I want to make sure my branches stay darker than the background, But if I make them too dark up here, they won't feel like they have any air or light happening through them. So I'm going to try to follow some of the curves of these. Now I just said I didn't want a lot of detail, and I'm adding detail, but I'm adding the detail that I'd like to see in the painting, which are these wonderful curvy branches. Let's see, I feel like that needs to come out a little bit. This needs to be thicker still. When I start going silent, you know I'm really having fun. That's the tip off that I'm starting to enter a painting zone that I love to be in. Now I like those pops of color coming up from underneath, but I do not want them to be distracting from the image. I just want them to enhance, not distract. That's also what's going on with this fog. It seems to be distracting, so I'm just lightening it up a bit, making it not so apparent by just adding some white, lightening it up. As I'm adding detail, I'm trying to be aware of what's going on with shadow and light even now. I'm closing in on what I'd like to do and say in this painting, but I'm not quite there yet, and I still have a couple minutes that I've given myself. I give myself a pretty tight timeline to help me learn to paint faster, to help me learn to paint with more control and confidence, to help me figure out how to not waste time with unessential things. I'm trying to find the branches that contain these bits of snow without going too crazy. And that's it. My time is up. I may add a few little bits of detail here and there. I may need to reevaluate a few little bits, and which I'm going to do right here, right now, with this little area back behind this shed or whatever this is, addition. But for the most part, I'm really happy with how this is coming out. Can you imagine how it started out? Remember, with just that messy, messy, messy colored canvas? Well, it's still messy, but in a whole different way. Okay, I'm going to stop fiddling with it right now. Let it dry, see where it is, and then I may readdress this painting in a minute once I get all of these, once it's all settled into where it wants to be. One more. I keep doing that one more thing, and I'll one more it to death if I'm not careful. Okay, done. Let's finish.
You're on, Diana.
Oh, okay. Oh, where am I? I'm trying to find me on the
Oh,
stream
you're on
here.
you're on your main camera.
Okay, am I on my main camera and
Yes.
talking? Okay, great. There we go. Well, I saw a bunch of questions about this piece, and I'll hold it up. It's right here. The colors of my lighting might be off, but I kind of like how it came out. I like the fog up high. I also have the little pieces I did with the hard edge. Oh, the lighting is really bad here. And the soft edge. And I did the, I also painted the painting of the slippery driveway. And I think what I'll do is I'll put that demo, that painting on YouTube, and I'll put a link on my website, in my newsletter part on my website. So I'll give that to everybody as a Christmas present, that little slippery slope snow painting. But if anyone has a question, I can't see the chat right now. But Peter, will you sort of give me questions? And I've still got quite a bit of time, so I'm happy to answer any questions. I also have a palette set up, and I can do little marks on, a page if someone's really wants to see like some specific, hit my mic, have some specific questions I want answered. So this is your time, folks, to ask me questions, have me answer them. Or if we don't have any questions, we'll just sign off a little early, and I'll try posting that other video sometime this weekend. But I am happy to answer anything. So just want to let you know the perspective course just came out. And if you want to do buildings, I saw some comments in the comment bar about people who wanted to do buildings. And so if you would, there they are. There's the comments. I just found them.
Okay,
so now I can see your comments.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any. Oh, what's Diana's website is one of the questions.
Oh, it is www.diannashyne. There's DiannaShyne.com. That's it. Just Dianna Shyne. Make sure there's 2 N's in Dianna and a Y in Shyne, and you'll get it. Shelley said she found some quinacridone burnt orange. I have been using other things besides quinacridone burnt orange because it's hard to find these days. And Shelley, I'm glad you found it. I have been trying burnt sienna, which I don't like as much because it's opaque, and quinacridone burnt orange is transparent, which gives a whole different feel. Let's see. Marilyn just ask about how to find my website. Maybe we'll write that down for you in a minute. The thing that I found that most like quinacridone burnt orange. Someone said they mixed quinacridone gold with red, and that does a nice job. I've tried transparent red iron oxide, and that is it just makes a nice wintry color. I think those two, the quinacridone burnt orange with the yellow oxide, make some real muted, soft, wintry colors. But from the maybe I can just turn this that direction. From my 2 little demos, you totally don't need it. I didn't use it there. I used regular, just red, yellow, blue. And I really didn't need quinacridone burnt orange. So Jessica's asking, did I place the darks and lights on that panel in a conscious way? No, I just splatted color. I was thinking about the painting I was going to do, but really I just put color everywhere. And so Betty's saying she's interested in my mark making at the end you do of your paintings. How do you decide some and where they fit in? Well, one of the things is I start out with an idea of what I would like my painting to look in the very beginning so that it helps me not get too carried away at the end I often do get too carried away at the end, but because I've lost that mental note of how I wanted it to be. But a lot of times there's a few leading branches or a few edges that will lead my eye through the painting that really need to be there. And I don't put them in until the end because it's at the end of the painting. I can see whether the painting is functioning and whether it's going to, whether your eye is going to move through it. And those are just little helper tools, those bits, or they repeat an area. I've got there we go, snow painting in the back that I did of an old shed. And there's some, the framework of the door of the garage makes this sort of H shape. And there was a bunch of ladders leaned up on it. And I didn't paint those ladders in at first. But at the very end, I put the ladders in because they repeated that H shape. And I thought it was really interesting. And it made the painting much more about shape than about a garage, and much more about the difference between these architectural shapes and the snow. And I thought that was a nice contrast. And so it's just where you put those last details. Like every branch doesn't need to be there. The human eye fills in all the lost details if you put a few in just the right places. And a lot of painting detail is just, you put a detail in and it totally just distracts you and you look over to the side. Or you put a detail in and it helps you hone in on what your painting is really about. And a lot of, what the painting is really about is up to you. Like if you want it to be about the crispness of the snow or the soft fluffiness of the snow, or if you want it to be about the color of the light, and whatever your subject matter is just a vehicle for creating the color of light. You decide. It's up to you. What do you want your painting to be about? Do you want it to be about the juxtaposition of the trees or the way the trees interact with the sky? All those things are in your hands to decide. And every single person will paint an imagery different if given the chance. Sorry. Thank you, Mary, for your comment on the garage. And Patricia says, do I ever put a wash over the snow? Yeah. If I find that it's just the wrong color, you can just mix up some transparent color, get it really thin down, and just put a wash right over the top. If you find that it's just, if the snow isn't turning in space, I showed the little thing where each time the snow changes its position towards the sun, it changes in value and temperature a little bit. And if you find your snow isn't doing that, you can just put a wash over it. Make sure it's transparent color. Make sure you use a lot of either water or glazing liquid. But you can change anything with a little wash or a glaze. Nancy asked, do I have a preference in brands for titanium white? Yes, I do. I'm very particular. I use Utrecht titanium white. I use pretty much golden paints for most everything else, or Liquitex Professional. But Utrecht is the thickest, the densest, is the most covering. It's the creamiest. I buy it in giant gallons, and a lot of people have trouble covering things. Their paint is, if you have student grade paints, it just won't cover. But if you have one tube of really great white, titanium white Utrecht, you can cover up everything. It's great stuff. And so, yeah, I use that. I use the Utrecht titanium, and I also use Utrecht Professional gesso because it covers everything. And when I make a big batch of a painting and it's hideous, I have a big gallon of gesso and I can comfort myself saying, well, this was just practice, and my practice was not the way I wanted it to turn out. I can gesso over that ugly painting and put a prettier painting on top. Hello from South Florida. We've been talking about snow. But we're really happy you have joined us. Um, winter, I love that snow is a reflector of light and that it can reflect any and every color. I actually saw a Russian Impressionist painting by Levitan, and all the snow was green because there were storm clouds up above and the light was shining through filtered trees, creating the snow green. So, oh, sorry about the cough. I better get a drink of my tea here. But actually, snow just reflects the whole world around it or the white light that's shining on it. Um, and Janet says she watches what I'm painting reminds her to paint in layers and not expecting a masterpiece with the block in. And that's true. The block in is just that, it's the starting point. And a painting isn't a photograph. You don't get a perfect thing the minute you click a button. You're going to build your painting like building a house. You can't see how beautiful the house is when you just lay the foundation. You can get an idea of how beautiful the house might be when you lay the foundation. So it's important to remember that blocking in a painting is the foundation. It's not, don't start hanging the curtains and, putting up shelves yet. It's the foundation. You have to build this painting stroke by stroke. Oh, look at how many people are from Florida. Well, I'm glad you got to join us for our winter retreat here. But wouldn't it be nice to be in Florida right now? I tell you, it's pretty cold, wet, and rainy. It's not snowy here, but it's been in the mid to upper 30s, just hovering above freezing and raining. So it's really damp and cold. And so I'm thinking about you lovely people in Florida going, oh, it sounds so nice. A nice little walk in the sunshine, maybe a dip in the ocean or something. It just sounds lovely. But we made, my grandsons and I made a snowman on last Wednesday that was almost as tall as me. By the time, oh, June, where are you? Where it's negative 39. Oh my gosh. Our snowman weighed more than 3 adults could push, our big snowball. So we got it pretty big. Oh yeah, Roberta, thanks for mentioning that. I did 7 portrait paintings in 7 hours that will be released for 7 weeks in a row, this starting in January. And if you want to learn portrait painting, you can go and find my portrait painting class. It's outside of Acrylic University, so it's a extra charge. But if you really want to learn portrait painting, there it is. And I have already started a second portrait painting series before my voice went. And so I'm just going to keep adding to it. Oh, June. Central Alberta. Oh, so cold. Yeah, this snow does definitely. That's why I used to like sing and wish for snow so much, because it put me as a little kid in a Christmassy mood. But yeah, oh, you guys. I was whining and complaining about my 35-degree temperatures and raining, so I'm stopping complaining right now. I won't froze my nose off when I go outside. Uh, we can just look at them and imagine snow instead of like having to take a hot shower when we get back on. But anyway, I was going to write down, if I could, my website. So I'm going to just here. So you can.
Hey, Diana, someone, just real quick, someone asked, how much harder are the portraits?
Okay. Let me get back there. The portraits are difficult because there's a lot of proportion, a lot of drawing. but not that much harder. Once you get the idea of how the head is constructed, and if you look at a skull or a head form, you'll notice that adult heads are constructed very similarly. Their eyes are about halfway down. Each eye width, if you measure the width of an eye, that could be the length of the nose, the width of the mouth, all sorts of things. Are once you know the proportions, you can really do it. But then you've got this thing where you turn sideways and things on one side change to the other. And so I addressed that in the 7 portraits. 7 portraits won't be enough to make you a photorealist portrait painter. These are impressionist portraits that I'm doing, not meant to be exact replicas of the person, but just trying to get the form in, just like my little trees aren't exact portraits of those trees. They're meant to get the form and the idea. And so, yeah, that's, but you will learn a lot. 7 is a lot to learn from. And I will put in a couple of extra things on how to critique your own work, how to fix it up. If there's something bad at the end, you're like, oh, that eye is not in the right place. So there's a couple of critique things. Someone asked the questions. Lizette wants to know how to watch the 2 mini recorded demos on normal speed. And that is a really good question. I looked for them and I will continue hunting for them. I had transformed them to fast speed. And then I don't know where I put what folder I put the normal speed ones in. But if I can find them this weekend, I'll ask Peter to post those. If not, just sort of stop and press your pause button a lot so you can catch up. I don't normally do speeded up stuff, but I just thought it would be awfully boring to watch me labor through 40 minutes of each little one. So I hope you just go back and press the pause button. And then someone else asked if all quinacridones are transparent. Yes. And June says she doesn't know how to do snow because she tends not to look at it because it's so cold. How about being inside and looking out the window? There you go. You don't have to freeze yourself. Yes, and definitely if you're still learning, if you are in acrylic university to get the most out of acrylic university, wait on those portrait paintings if portrait hasn't been your thing. Someone asked, what's the spelling for the white paint? All right, it's like a German word, but it's UTRECHT. I'll go get it. I get my gallon. Whoa, hang on a minute.
While Diana's doing that, someone asked if we can take the portraits later, and yes,
Anytime.
The miniatures are available to members year round. So it's one of the perks of being a member.
Here's the Utrecht I get. You don't have to buy a gallon. I buy a gallon because I paint big. So and this gallon lasts me a whole year. So a tube will probably suffice most people in acrylic university. Big tube. Get a big tube. And so, yeah. Will I be attaching a bibliography for drawing the head and painting skin tones? Well, I actually discuss what the tone colors are when I'm painting them and why, because I've used people from a variety of different races in a variety of different lighting situations. And much like snow, human skin really responds to the color of light you're standing in, whether it's sunlight or moonlight or lamp light. And also depends on how old you are and what race you are. So there's all these different factors for skin. So I have 7 people of different ages and races in different lighting situations. So each one will have a different color, skin tone color description inside the demo itself. As far as bibliography, I give the reference photos for a black and white of the portrait, a color of the portrait, and a little a little shape head thing in the right lighting. So there's a lot of things. Now, someone asked if there's a list of what colors are transparent. Peter, do you mind if I leave again? I got to go get another tube of paint, and I'm going to show you something.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. A trick. Okay. Not all paints have this, but most good paints will tell you the transparency level. Now, golden, let's see if I can get it out of that bright light. Here you go. There's a little strip right here on golden jars and golden tubes. And it's got 3 little black lines and a swash of paint. If you can see those black lines, it means the paint is transparent. If you can't see the little black lines, it means it's opaque. Here is my new phthalo blue-green shade. You can see the lines through it. That means phthalo blue-green shade is transparent. So I don't actually have a list of transparents, but all quinacridones are transparent. Titanium white is the most opaque paint you'll get. And most yellows, except for cadmium yellows, are the most opaque. This is Hansa yellow light. Very, I'm trying to get it out of the bright light. Very, very transparent. No, you can't even see those lines right now. Sorry. The lighting in my room is funny. And so, oh, someone wants to see the painting of the slippery driveway. There it is. And I've got this one recorded. I'm not sure how good the sound is, so I'm going to redo the sound if I need to. I'm just going to voice over it because there was that thing happening. And I last year I gave a demo to the people on my newsletter list, and to people who visited my website. They could just go and click on the link and find my demo. And that was my Christmas present to whoever was curious enough to find out. And it will be mine to you too if you click on, but not for another week or so, because I got to revamp it a little bit. So anyway, so Sharon asks, are the portraits, well, all minis, if you buy any mini session, they are available to you forever, as long as Acrylic University is alive, because they're the ones who support and supply and feed out the minis. And I can tell you, we are committed to being around for a very long time. So no, if you stop being a member of Acrylic University, you'll still have access to your minis. So, oh, what underlayer did I use on the driveway? The same kind of crazy underlayer that I used on this other one. I used all 3 of these snow paintings the one right behind me, the slippery slope, and the yellow house, all had a crazy background under them. So, so that's, you'll see. And then if you can find my demo from last year, I have a snow demo of a long distance view of a valley. It was done on a crazy background too. I really enjoy painting on that. And a lot of times when I'm teaching for Acrylic U, I don't do that because it is really confusing. I saw a lot of comments about how people's brains were breaking. So I don't want to do that all the time. I would hate to do that to you. But anyway, oh, Jan says, when do you use phthalo blue green shade in a snow shadow? If there's one in the painting behind me, right down here, it's the snow is sitting out in the open and it's reflecting a bright blue sky. And this is snow right here is tilted to its side and it's not reflecting the bright blue sky. So you can use phthalo in that shadow as the sunlight is beaming its color down into the shadow and reflecting up. And let's see, Patricia says, do I put a sealer coat on my paintings? Yes. Acrylic paint is not, I should say acrylic paint is delicate until you put a sealer coat on it. So I use a golden seal to seal it up. And then I use a Cheap Joe's varnish to cover that. You know, you need to make a barrier. It's a barrier coat between the paint and the varnish. And I've got a whole section on that somewhere. But yeah, acrylic paintings need to be varnished or they can be damaged easily. And the varnish is meant to protect them from things like smoke and, you know, damaging fingerprints. If someone accidentally spritzes it with, Windex, if someone spritzes a raw acrylic painting with Windex, the paint will run. The paint will just come off. So you want a nice varnish on there. I had a friend who had her things up in a dentist office and the cleaner cleaned them all and destroyed every painting. So yeah. We need to seal our paintings if you want to keep them. You don't have to seal the ones that are just for fun, but seal up the ones you want to keep. A sealer, a good varnish will do fine. Golden has a product that is made. I don't remember the name of it right now, but if you go look at their products, they have a paint product that's made for sealing your painting. And thank you. Isolation coat. Thank you, PJ. Yes, it's called isolation coat. My brain wasn't working. And then I put a varnish on top of it. Varnish is meant to be sort of the buffer between the world and your painting, and it can be removed. And that isolation coat protects the paint underneath from being harmed in any way. It is called Golden Isolation Coat. You can also use a gel medium if you want. Golden Isolation Coat is made to isolate the layers between the paint and the varnish. And thank you, Marta, for saying my about the crazy background. I was wondering whether I should do that to you guys, but it was such fun to do. And I know if you just do a couple practice ones, I mean, it's crazy at first and you'll hate me and you'll be yelling at me from your paint studio. But if you do a couple of them, it really gets fun. And it almost gets, it's like a puzzle. I don't know if you like puzzles. I love puzzles. So it's like a puzzle and you're finding the pieces to the puzzle and it gets addictive. So, okay, here's another couple varnishing questions. Here we go. Do you use paint on varnish? Yes, I do. The spray varnish for me, I'm allergic to the spray stuff, so I paint it on. The paint on varnish is non-toxic. You probably don't put a beautiful thick acrylic painting under glass, but if your paintings are thinner, you can if you want to, and especially if your paintings are on paper, you can put them on glass. But a nice varnish makes it much less expensive and tedious to frame. And so yes, Marta said Windex is a great cleaner for acrylics on your brushes. You just don't want to get them on your painting and have it run. So, and someone asked if I use glossy satin or matte varnish. I mix satin with a little bit of gloss. It has a little more glow to it. I don't know if you saw the glow of this one. It's not gloss and it's not satin. It just is somewhere, it lives somewhere between. It just has a nice little glow that I like. And someone mentioned that my paintings looked a little bit like oil paintings, and that glow is sort of like the varnish oil painters use that I like. Okay, Barbara's asking, is the coating of the scrapings textured and ridged on the canvas? Okay, I'm leaving my chair and I'm going to get you one I just did. Okay, I'm coming back. Here we go. I just did this one and I'm going to turn it so you can see it has a little bit of ridge. I used a palette knife to knock down the heavy ridges. So, so that if there's a big, if there's a big ridge line and it cuts right through an important part of your painting, you don't want that. You don't want the underlayer to mess up or to interfere with or make, big messy bits in your painting. It's just a fun way to start with some color in the underneath. In the underneath parts, they just sort of glitters up from underneath in little tiny ways. You know that not a lot of it is going to be left over, just a little bit. But if you have a big glumps of it, those are going to show. So I use a palette knife to flatten those lumps down. And Camilla says she's used all the colors for her undercoating and she can't wait to paint. And, a lot of people have complained about what do you do with the messed up paint, the mixed up colors on your palette. Well, that's what I do with it. I hate to waste paint. I put the little globs that are not mixed up back in my paint box. And then I put all those messed up colors on a new panel and use them. Okay. Shannon Dianna asked, if you have snow next to a dark object, like snow on top of a dark rock or cliff, how do you play down the contrast so it doesn't become an unwanted focal point? Well, the snow is going to be light. So just turn that dark thing like the cliff into a mid value and soften the edge. If you have a hard edge plus a really strong value contrast, that will become the focal point no matter what you want to do. So if you make it a soft edge and just lighten up that dark area a little bit, that soft edge will help your eye flow over to where you really want someone to look. Sharon says, if you have a painting under light, should you use a matte varnish so there's no glare on it? Well, with a big painting, I would use a less shiny thing, especially in a room that's lots of windows, because you'll never see the painting with it. If it's got a glass varnish on it, you'll never see the painting. You'll just see the glare. So, and yes, Brian does mix up his paints to create grays. And so do I sometimes. Sometimes I want a nice gray background. Because a mid gray will help you find your values better. So if you mix up all those paints and turn them into a mid gray, put them on your underlayer, it's going to create a lovely, lovely mid gray. And yeah, Michelle, Michelle says she puts varnish in or gloss or satin medium where she wants pieces of her painting to be have a glossy or satin finish, then you probably shouldn't varnish. But your painting will be a little vulnerable. So maybe if you added a little satin or gloss varnish into your paint as you painted, it would make it more stable. I don't know. It's a thought. But yeah, the varnish is going to equalize the sheen on your painting. So it will cover that up. And so, that is a thought. And I don't know what the answer to that is, if they have a totally non-intrusive varnish that you could use. I've not heard of such a thing. So anyway, thank you for pointing that out, Michelle, that some people want the difference. I want my paintings to have all the same sheen, but that is a personal, that's a personal style thing. Some people like their paintings to be shiny, glossy, and other people like their paintings to have like an almost wax-like shine to them. And so it's just up to you what you want, how you want your paintings to look. Yes, Gisela, Liquitex professional products are really great and they will work just fine. I know that the Golden Company really strongly suggests an isolation coat because, way down in the future, if someone has to remove your varnish, they use a heavy chemical-y thing to take the varnish off. The isolation coat will protect the paint from anything used to remove the varnish. So I'm just trying to think about that isolation coat. And I think probably it's a good idea for things that you really want to stand the test of time. Most of my paintings, aren't going to outlive me because I'll probably make a big bonfire before I go so my kids don't have to deal with them. But for paintings that you do want to stand the test of time, it's good to finish them up in a nice archival way. So, yeah. Okay. So I think we're just about done. My voice is certainly just about done. So one more last question. My opinion on Liquitex gloss, medium, and varnish instead of a plain varnish. I don't have an opinion on that because I've never used it. So sorry, you have to ask someone who's done that. And I just want to thank you guys all for being here. This has been so delightful. And I just want to let you know that it's okay to experiment, to explore, to try new things. No one's watching. Like on here, I'm experimenting, exploring. You're all watching. So you can do it in the privacy of your studio or your home or whatever. No one's watching. You don't have to show anybody. Just experiment, explore, play, have fun. If something doesn't turn out, it's okay. It's not a reflection on you. It's a reflection on the process of learning. If you watch how little children learn, they fall down a lot before they learn to walk. They make a lot of scribble pictures before they can color. They make a lot of things that look like squiggly wigglies until they can make a circle. It's all part of the process. And the more you fail, the sooner you get back up again, the easier the next one will be to have a success. So that's what I want to leave you with is play, have fun, enjoy. Yeah, there.